YouTube. Hello, everybody, as everybody comes in. Hello, hello, hello. I'm just posting something on TikTok. It won't let me paste it. There we go. And post. So, I am going to be talking self-care today, I think, and some non-ritual parts of self-care that people can incorporate in their lives. That is, if we have people in here today, we'll see who comes in and who doesn't, or who makes it in. That wasn't like that. More if we get anybody in. And we're going to be going over a couple things just because I was asked today by a family member who was seeking some help. I think also I want to start talking, especially when we're not on TikTok, and so it's not going to be as problematic, about dealing with and recovering from narcissism and recognizing narcissism. And so that's, I think, one of the things that we're really going to kind of focus on a little bit today, because it's another thing that I was dealing with today. I don't think I'm going to get live banned on YouTube for smoking because I think it happens regularly. I'm in a legal state, so I am going to medicate. Isn't she pretty? She's one of my favorites. So today I'm doing my nails as well because I have I do my own nails anyways. It's part of, I have to do my nails because my nails are so thin and so sharp that they've actually cut my partner intimately, and I don't like doing that. So I put something over them to make sure that they don't do that. And to do that, I found that acrylics were a lot more expensive than they wanted to be. And so I started doing dip powders at home. I'm probably not going to talk a whole lot unless we have people in here, just because I am doing shit. Computer play Rising Appalachia.
Shuffling songs by Rising Appalachia on Amazon Music.
My guilty pleasure is Amazon. And I like having a computerized house, don't you? If you have that opportunity. I got my first Alexa the first Christmas we were here, when my sons and I got a gift card for Amazon, because I was having a hard time keeping appointments, and I thought that maybe it would help. And I don't think it ever did. I don't think it did all the things that I wanted it to, but it does a lot of cool things in my house now. And say we're rushing in silence, and so is your silence when it's rooted in compliance. Stand firm in loving defiance, make all your alliance. Move people to the rhythm, drum, gather yourself and begin. Do not get to see who comes in this, and I don't know why. There it is. Okay. Oh, hey, hey, DeGray. Yay. Okay. My chat wasn't up for some reason. Good to see you, beautiful. I think today, so I, after having a conversation this morning, and because it's YouTube, so it's a little bit easier, I think I'm just going to talk about dealing with narcissism and about kind of self-care within spiritual self-care that can be incorporated into everyday life, like protection and stuff like that, and cleansing that can be incorporated into everyday life. Computer, stop. Computer, stop. She's being a bitch. She's often a bitch, though. I don't think she understands me. Computer, stop. There we go. I was talking today with a family member who is new for me, so I don't know a lot, and I haven't been able to talk to him a whole lot before about stuff like this. But they were going through some stuff, and we were talking, and they know that I have some knowledge, and so they asked for some help. And so I want to go over, hey Bethany, I want to go over just a couple of little simple rituals of cleansing and protection, just because of the fact that I think that we're dealing with a world that is just really full of negative energy and really full of negative beings right now who are kind of feeding off of others. And we need to protect ourselves from it, right? Like it's very problematic. But if you're anything like me, anything that's more than just a part of your everyday life, getting more and more blind and nearsighted, anything that's a part of your everyday life, you can't, or anything that is more than simple is hard to incorporate into everyday life, right? And so I also want to state that a lot of the things that I do, I've been working with energy and understanding energy since before I understood other people, right? You know, like some of my earliest memories involve gathering herbs and understanding plants as other beings and the energy interaction there, and talking to the plants, or meditating and vibrating energy off of myself, or visualizing energy. So these are some of my earliest like memories, like as a toddler, as a small child, which I do believe we should all be doing. Like I do believe that that is something that we should be doing a whole lot more as a society. I did some of it with my children, but not as much as I probably would have liked. But so with that, I don't do tools usually. Like I have some tools on an altar, but those tools are just there because they're for my ancestors. Like they're just little things for my ancestors. Like, oh, this is pretty. I thought you'd like it. Or we made this, or this was our creation, or this is the family and this is our blessings. And, you know, they're like little gifts for my ancestors, basically. They're not like tools of use. The only tool of use that I really have on my altar, because the only things that I really do, I have an abalone shell. And I have a cauldron, like a small little cauldron, an iron one. And in those two different things, I will burn different things, different air cleansers. I'll use sage, different types of sage. I'll use sweetgrass, I'll use cedar, and I'll use rose typically. Or I'll use a charcoal and use a combination of those in the cauldron. And I'll like use different resins in the cauldron, or on any charcoal. I don't use a charcoal in the abalone. It really make the abalone. I don't want, like, the charcoal burns for so long, right? So I use a couple of different air cleansing methods, but those are not very frequent for me. And then I use a candle holder. Like I have an old mead bottle that is beautiful and that I love, and mead is something that I use as an offering. I have an old mead bottle that I put a candle in, and I use plain white candles. And then I have a lighter. I love I love off-track music, like music that's not mainstream. And one of my favorite artists is probably mainstream now, but Superman. And in Let Him Go, he says everything traditional is once brand new, and I agree with that 100%. And so for me, the tool of the lighter is it's a new modern world tool, but it is still a tool. And you know, when it was a flint, it was a brand new tool, right? At one point. So for me, it really rings true. And because it really rings true, I'm going to reach over your guys' head. For me, the lighter, therefore, just becomes a tool that I have. What makes a tool to me a tool that is spiritual is not the tool itself, but absolutely. It's not the tool itself, but it is the tool, the dedication of the tool, right? Um, yeah, lighters were invented before matches, and actually, lighters are a really old thing. You can get, really old looking lighters. I make offerings to my ancestry. For me, so to me, we are all energy. I don't believe that there's like a god, a deity. I do believe in like the earth as kind of a deity, and I do believe in deities, but I don't believe in deities as I believe we created the deities. I believe that the deities may have once been humans, but that they were archetypes of different parts of humanity, and those archetypes of different parts of humanity, or different parts of nature, are became visuals to us, became so when you impersonate an archetype and become that impersonation through time, like I don't believe that Christ himself was holy, but I do believe that he's been made to be holy to some people, right? Like, so I don't believe that whoever the original archetype for the trickster was a holy deity or was a holy being. Like I don't believe that we would have thought of them really as much different, but they so archetyped that side of humanity that when the came for them to for when history passes into myth, when so there's a switch in the species that goes from being a part of the world. Oh, the background on this is kind of a different one. That goes from being a part of the world into being a God, what's the word I'm looking for? Goes from being a part of the world into the belief in an esoteric, right? Into a spirituality thought process, right? And so uh, when we see that switch is when we get to that point. I think I want to do that one more time. No, I've done it. Yeah, let's do it just one more time. When you get that switch from just being one with the world, right? That switch that believes that there is something else, like that switch. I think that and I mean, we can't say that animals don't believe in a deity or a higher power, but that switch into a higher power, when we get to that idea where we get to burial, cave art, things like that, right? That idea outside of us, right? Also that idea of identity is at the same time, right? So I think that when we get to that switch, I think that the stories that develop around the people that are around us at the time that start to embody those characteristics over a period of, millennia become no longer like I think that they go from, the chief to that emperor to that god, right? Like I think that it becomes that step up, right? Like I think that and I don't think it's a conscious and I don't think it's like making a god king or anything else like that, but I do think that it's as the tales just like the Sami people become and please this is a slur. This is not something that should be used. But if we look in the sagas, the Sami, the trolls in the sagas are Sami, right? Um, it's a slur, so like I'm describing the creation of a slur. And so I don't want to on any way, shape, or form encourage the use of this, but the understanding that this is how, right? So we create mythical beings out of things that we don't understand. The Selkies, it is now believed that the Selkies are actually Finnic people who were traveling in canoes that were, or not canoes, but in kayaks that were hide covered, which was done. And they have a specific seal that has actually died out. Like they had a specific lake seal. And so they would cover their kayaks and their bodies with that seal skin. And it is now thought, and you can trace like it was used to be that if a child was born with webbed feet or fingers, because webbed feet or fingers is a thing that happens in Celtic areas, but it happens rarely in Celtic areas. When a child is born with that, they thought it was the child or descendant of Selkie, like Selkie ancestry. I have webbed toes, and my grandfather had webbed toes. Great grandfather had webbed toes. He is the Irish line that comes in, and my daughter has webbed toes. Right, same. We all have the same two webbed toes, right? And there is legend of Selkie in our line. But when we look at who the Selkie people actually are, and you look at the Finnic people, you see that there is a genetic preposition for the webbing in some lines. And then you also see that there is the seals, and you see the kayak, and you see that they were an Arctic group who is moving in Arctic circles, right? And so you can see where this correlation comes in to being. And so we get the creation of the myth of beings of the Selkies, right? I believe that that's the same thing with the Furbolg, and the same thing with the Finjanen, and the same thing with all the different things throughout history that we have seen as these larger than life things, right? So I think gods are the same. Now, I don't mean that they don't have power. I don't mean that you can't talk to them. I know people who have had experiences with, right? I don't work that way. I don't visualize that way. My mind doesn't work that way, right? And so I don't have those experiences, but I trust and believe in the people that have had those experiences, right? And so to me, I totally see those experiences as valid, just like I totally see all creation stories as valid and as being proven by science. When you look at the science of it, you can see that. So when I focus my energy, what I do is focus my energy to my family lines. And the reason that I focus my energy to my family lines, so I'm really, really big on the fact that I don't ask for things. To me, that's not appropriate. I get that people do. I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not telling you not to. I don't. So instead of asking for things, what I do is I go in gratitude. Now, sometimes I will ask for protection or safety for family or people. And I have the girl who I lost last year, who I grew up with, her family. So I was not welcome in my home past the age of very end of my 15th year. And one of the places of safety was my very good friend and her family and her little sister. I would have called me, I still call her one of my best friends. And her sister, who was also a very good friend, who was just slightly younger than I was, and was in fact closer in age to her than to her sister, who I went to school with because we went to the alternative school together. We lost her last year. She was an MIW. She's like a year younger than me. And when it happened, I printed out images of her and her children because she left behind 3 children. And I put them on my altar, and I asked my ancestry to watch her children for me, to give help to her children in this life and make sure that her children were safe, right? And I asked them to welcome my sister to their space, that they, their energy space. So I will ask for things like that, right? Like, I'll ask for things like that. Thank you, Bethany. But I don't ask for things like, I think once or twice I've asked for stability or, something along those lines, but not for my mother wanted me to ask for money for her a while ago. I can't do that. Like for me, the idea of asking for Caesar's gold. I mean, that's really, I mean, about as Christian as you're ever going to see me get is the idea of asking for Caesar's gold. Like I'm like, fuck off. I can't, there's just like no fucking way. Like you can't ask for money. Like everything that I ask for takes from somewhere else. I fully believe that while energy is not finite, that all energy is effective, right? Like all energy affects other energy, right? Energy creates other energy, but it affects other energy. So if I'm taking, then somebody else is without. And so for me, that's not something I'm capable of doing. I mean, I feel capable of doing. I'm sure that I have done it at times, and I'm sure that subconsciously I do way more than I want to. But for me, it's something that I couldn't consciously set out to do. So I just don't ask. But what I do is I'll light a candle, and um, I'm bad about expressing or feeling gratitude sometimes in my day to day life. But if I am lighting a candle, I will do it for that. And then usually when I'm lighting a candle, like I will turn a candle clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on what I'm trying to do. I'm usually holding it like this, so clockwise or counterclockwise. And I usually am lighting the bottom, like melting the bottom a bit so I can put it in my candle holder. And I focus on whatever it is that I'm trying to do. But I do it as in a stanza of three, in a cycle of three of like keep the boys safe, keep the boy, like, but I'll my verbiage tends to get more ornate, I guess, in those points and times. Not like flowery, but like I try and do it as a rhythmic, right? Um, but that's as ritual as I get. Like that is literally as ritual as I get. When I was talking today with my family member who um, needed some understanding on how to, protect themselves slightly better. What I really, there's a couple of really simple, just everyday things that I've done. Some of them, like I've done my entire life, just because they were part of what I was taught really young. But some of them I've incorporated later. And the first one is a shield of energy of light. And what this is a imagination or a visualization or a feeling or however you connect to energy, right? Emanating from your body. Now, if you create your own energy, like some of us do, then this is the energy that might emanate. If you gather your energy from elsewhere, then that's the energy that might emanate. I would remind that if you gather energy from elsewhere, that it's always positive to ask. It doesn't matter if it's a plant. It doesn't matter if it's, a tree, a person. It's always, and I don't mean that it's okay to draw energy at any point, but like if you're one of those people that like sits in nature and gathers energy from the nature around you, then I would, request nutrient, right? Like, I need some interaction, I need some energy, or just, it with kindness and with love, make sure that your language is with kindness and with love, right? Um, and it doesn't have to be verbal, it can totally be intentional and thoughtful, right? Like within the brain. Um, a lot of people will do sun, which is a really good way. And that's not something where you really need to ask, right? Because it's going to give it to you naturally, anyways. That's just what happens. So, another really good way to gather energy, if you are not the type who creates it within, um, then is sitting within the sun, going out and I come from the Pacific Northwest. So I know how difficult and hard it is to find sun sometimes, right? Lived the vast majority of my life in the Pacific Northwest. We don't get a lot of sun here. And when we get sun here, it's, very well, the last few years, it's been a lot more. But sitting with the energy or sitting out and finding a space in which the sun kind of breaks through the clouds, right? A space in which there is that warmth that you can feel will gather that energy within your being. Um, this is if you are the type of gatherer or type of energy person who does gather energy is probably the healthiest way. I do want to state that I was taught really early to gather energy. There are a lot of energy things out there or energy teachings out there that teach to gather energy, not to create your own. And I remember reading a book and learning how to kind of draw energy from plants in my early teens. Now, I was told by my mothers, by my aunties, by all the women who raised me, who were all energy workers. There's about 5 women who raised me, who to me are my mothers and my aunties, right? And they were all energy workers, all indigenous, and all had this reconnection going on, or were not needing to reconnect, right? And within all of this teaching, I was taught that they couldn't teach me how I needed to work energy. Um, they could, I could watch, or I could, most people will not teach you how to work energy. I don't know why people don't think that they can teach how to work energy. But, anyways, I was taught that I had to learn it on my own. When my mother gave me the only compliment that she's ever really given me in my life, she told me that she thinks that I have the best and the cleanest and the purest energy because of the fact that um, they told me to figure out how to do it on my own. And so I went everywhere and looked everywhere. And I did. I literally looked everywhere. And because I literally looked everywhere I could, and because I've always been an avid reader, one of the places that I really looked at, um, or all the books that I really looked at, I learned certain things. And so within that learning, um, I read, God, I can't, Celestine Prophecies, I think is what it was. And in Celestine Prophecies, it talks about drawing energy from things around you, right? And when I was reading about that and I was learning about that, I started the first, I actually had the first instance of real, like, I could see how my healing had affected somebody. And in a major way, right? And so I started really getting into doing energy work for people and on people and in healing and using healing. Um, and I was 13 at this time. But one thing that I found as I was doing it that I just, God, I think I did this for like a year after Celestine Prophecies, maybe. But after that, I felt I didn't like drawing energy from other things. To me, I felt like drawing energy from other things was very vampiric. And so I couldn't. And so I started finding ways to. So at the time, what I would do and what I had learned with Celestine Prophecies was kind of to draw out energy and to replace energy. Like, so I would draw out the negative, the visualization that I had of the negative, and replace it with the visualization I have of healing. And I would draw the negative out and I'd put it into the ground, which has a lot of healing. That cycle is actually can be very healing, right? Taking the negativity, putting into the ground because the ground can cleanse it, and then putting more positive energy in. And I would draw the energy from the world around me, positive energy to channel through me into. Um, I I didn't like the way that this made me feel, so I changed it. So what I started doing after that was I started picking apart the energy that I find. Like if I could go, because I visualize going into somebody's body and finding the target area that is causing problems. And at this time, and I think I was probably So I think about a year and a half after Celestine prophecies, and so what happened was, I have a man that I consider my brother, who I grew up with, who was in the Navy and was med boarded with rheumatoid arthritis and wasn't walking. And I did a lot of healing work with him. Um, and he was able to, it was able to defect dramatically. So um, I could see the effect and I could see that it worked, but I didn't like the feeling of the way I was doing it, right? And so I started visualizing it as going in, and I would take the dark energy, the negative energy, and I would repair it within the body. I do it completely different now. I do things totally different now, but that was, of course, I was a teenager. But these are some of my earliest understandings of energy and how to work energy. And I think that, well, we can absolutely draw energy from other sources. That I think for myself, I feel healthier if I need to draw energy from other sources, for that to be from the sun, because for me, it felt unhealthy to draw from plants or other human beings. It also felt unhealthy to deposit energy in the ground, just because of the fact that then the ground was dealing with whatever the negative energy was, right? Then the ground had to cleanse that, and that could be going somewhere else. Again, I'm not trying to tell anybody or school anybody on how to work their energy or their healing. I'm just trying to give a foundation of why, to me, if you're going to go and draw, or if you're drawing, first of all, I don't see drawing as a harmful, because that is a need. Like some people, this is why we have extroverts and introverts, right? That's what it kind of means. Like an extrovert gets their energy from being in a group of people. That interaction gives them energy, that communion, right? And if it's with other people or with the earth, it doesn't matter, right? But that communion gives them energy. Whereas an introvert has to be alone to create their energy, right? So for me, if you're the extrovert, like going out in a conversation, those things are absolutely positive, like absolutely every time. I'm not anything against that. And the going out and communing with nature, absolutely every time. But if it's like, I need to draw energy because I need to recover energy, or I need to draw energy because I need to do something, to me, the best way to recover energy or to get energy is from the sun, which is that direct source of it anyways. When you're working with any form of negative energy coming in towards you, emanating white light is an extremely effective way of blocking out negative energy while accepting and receiving positive energy, because positive energy can get through white light. Now, if your visualization of positive energy is a different color, because people will visualize colors that feel right to them, right? So like some people think of green as money or abundance, and some people think of green as uh, fertility or nature, right? So um, they're both kind of an abundance thing, but one abundance is about acquiring wealth, and the other abundance is about the world around you, right? So if you picture love as pink or positive as pink, right? Or to you, dark doesn't equal lack of energy. To me, because the sun is such a presence of energy, to me, that light from the sun equals a presence of energy. But if that absence of an intrusion of energy to you is therefore a positive, right? And therefore, maybe dark is the way that you see that positive energy. If you are emanating dark as a positive energy, it's going to be the same thing. So where I say emanate light or white light, um, you can replace it with whatever feels as a positive energy or a protective color for you. Right. Your protection bubble is pink. So I don't want you to think that my color schemes don't apply for everybody, right? They only apply for people who either don't have a color scheme already and they're looking for one, or apply to people who have had the same upbringing as I have, which is so rare. In fact, I've never, like, I look at other color schemes and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't apply for me. Which is one of those reasons that a lot of people are like, I can't teach energy work, or, they will say, I won't teach somebody. Because of the fact that everybody's color schemes and everybody's way of working with energy. And that's why I say visualize or feel or think of or imagine or whatever it is that is your effective way of understanding energy. But visualize. I use white light because, again, that's that sun content, but visualize, and because that's how I was taught it, actually. Like as a child, I was taught the shield itself was white light. But visualize that sun or the emanation of energy from your body is protective, or feel it. And you can do this as you're laying down to sleep. You can do it whenever. For me, I kind of visualize it in just anytime, I'm feeling a little need of it. The other one that, oh, I think that was the wrong one. The other one that I was talking to my sibling about is there is and they were saying that they were doing this, but I don't believe that the way that they're doing it is effective for what they're working for. And we talked about that. So I will visualize myself in the eye of a tornado, right? And it's tight. It's a little tornado, right? Like it's just around my body, nothing else. And it's probably like this thick between my body and the rest of the world. And it's violently swirling, basically. The person who taught it to me was my first husband. And what they taught me was to visualize myself in the center of a storm. I take it to a tornado level to me because that's that, like, being in the eye of the person, nothing's getting through, right? Like nothing's making it whole through the eye or through the tornado. Don't visualize yourself as part of the tornado. First of all, then your energy is becoming destructive with the tornado, right? Second of all, if you are a part of the team, I can not only touch the outside, but if I touch the outside, then I get sucked into the tornado and become a part of the tornado. So don't visualize yourself as the tornado itself, because then they can become a part of it, right? They can become a part of your tornado. But visualize yourself in the center of the tornado. The tornado doesn't need to touch you if you don't want it to. It doesn't matter, really. Nothing can get to the center. But visualize yourself in the center. Again, most of these things will allow any positive thought or any positive feel through, or both of these things will allow any positive thought or positive feel through. And both of these things are just the simple visualization. You don't have to sit down and start meditating. You don't have to be in any position. You don't have to be in any specific space. All you have to do is you don't even have to close your eyes. You can be driving down the road and just feel the energy emanate from you, or just feel the tornado, or, memory it in your head. If like I said, I'm a very visual in my head person. But not everybody is. So I want to make sure that you do it really with whichever sense that works the best for you. And then we were also talking about cleansing. And I want to give I'm going to give one very simple daily cleansing. I think we've talked about household cleansing or house cleansing before, and we can talk about that a little bit more. But the simple daily cleansing that I want to give is showering. So I recommend that you do this top to bottom, starting with your head. Personally, myself, I always wash my hair and then my body, but then I wash my face last, which you can still do. I would just recommend that the way you do it, that the way you do it becomes a little bit more. So let me just describe it. So when you're doing your shower, as you're sudsing up your body, as you're lathering up the soap and everything else, if you can visualize, or however you work energy, the negativity in your body going into the suds of the soap. So say for myself, I visualize it as a darkness. The person I was talking to today was talking about it as a visualization of darkness, so it worked well for that. I visualize like particles of darkness going into the suds, or I visualize the suds themselves changing into a darkness. So, or a darker color, usually like a gray. It doesn't usually get like black or anything like that, but just a visualization of a change of the color scheme of it. Taking in the negative energy into the suds. And then as this is washing down your body, it takes that negative energy with you or with it and down into the drain. And it will flow out into, the sewers, where it's going to go with all the other really negative shit anyways, right? Um, so with this, what it does is it allows all the negative energy to be cleansed off of your body, but it also allows you to do it in a daily way without it being a ritual, right? As you're sitting there just scrubbing your hair, you just kind of feel the negativity leaving you, or you sense the negativity leaving you into that. And then you can, because it's doing this with water and soap, it actually becomes this like deeper feeling within your body, which gives it a better effect, basically, right? Um, and so I will first wash my hair, and I always wash my hair twice and then I condition, right? First wash my hair, condition my hair, and then I'll wash my body, and then I wash specific parts, and then I'll wash my face last. And as I'm doing it, all of the negativity is going into this, right? So it's all floating around the drain. When I'm washing my face, I usually soap it up and then I put it into the water. And so it goes here straight down. So it's not like it's going onto my body again. Okay. But as the water runs off your body, it's getting rid of any excess soap, right? And as it gets rid of all that excess soap, it's taking that negative energy that's in the soap and it's carrying it out of the body. You can do this if you like to do baths as well. But if you're doing it in a bath, I would recommend doing like a quick scrub shower afterwards. Or I would recommend that you stay in the tub, and this can be good, especially if you need to really be drained of a lot of stuff, or if it's right before bed. Or if it helps you really feel it deeper, right? And I used to do a lot of baths. I do less now. But if you're sitting there with it, you want to be in it and stay in the tub as the drain is draining, right? So you want to be in the tub until the last bit of the water goes down the drain. You want to let that last bit of the water carry that negativity. And you want to make sure that as you come up out of the water and as the water is leaving you, that it is slooshing kind of off of your body, like being removed from your body, right? But this going down the drain can be, I don't know if it's more effective than the shower. I think sometimes early on it might have felt more effective because I was doing more of it early on. It's the first way that I learned to do it. But I think that the shower can be more effective for me just because of the fact that I feel now that I kind of sit in it if it's in the tub, right? Yeah. Yeah. But I like to make sure that it's all off. And with the tub, you can also, well, and with both, just in different ways. So with the tub, you can also include herbals, like within like a bath bomb or within salts. All of these things will help cleanse. Rose is a really good cleanser, not only for the skin, which we know, but for energy as well. The reason I use rose in my air cleansing is because I was taught that by a very beautiful indigenous sister that I know over in Eastern Washington, who's like my mother's age, whose son I was with in Standing Rock. And that's one of the things that she uses in their cleansing, for the school that they have there, that the group has the nation itself has charge of what used to be the residential school, and it's all indigenous led and indigenous run. And it is the indigenous women, the local indigenous women and men actually, who run the boarding school basically, or the residential school. They, you get to come and stay during the week and then go home during the weekend and stuff like that. But it's all within the community. And every year she goes through several times a year, but specifically before the children are coming back from holidays and stuff like that, and cleanses because of, the pain that prior children have gone through, cleansing that energy and helping both, generations, the prior generations as well. Right. So, rose not only cleanses really well for the skin, which we scientifically like that use rose as a cleanser for the skin, but it also is really good for cleansing when it comes to spiritual cleansing. And this is something that you do see pretty much in any culture that uses air cleansing. And you see rose as a cleanser in many cultures during times when we no longer have that spiritual essence in that way. And you also see rose used in many different, like even the Catholic Church, I think, will use it within their, if I remember correctly, will use it within their air cleansing rituals. So you see it used pretty frequently. And it's a really good one to add to the bath because of the fact that it not only works for cleansing of the spirit, but it also works for cleansing of the body, right? And for the skin, it's beautiful for the skin. Rose is one of those really powerful things for the skin. And then the last one that I really want to go over today is a very simple salt cleanse ritual for the house, because I also encourage people to use whatever other cleansing rituals that they typically use. Salt is pretty cross-cultural in its cleansing elements. And we use salt for many different methods of cleansing. And in this, I invite you to use the salt, but to also, like, the only element of this that so I use salt and I go counterclockwise. Again, in many cultures, the counterclock, and I'm going clockwise, not counterclockwise, and the counterclockwise in many cultures, or opposed to the sun, which is what counterclockwise is, or widdershins in Celtic, versus sunwise or clockwise, or well, that's usually either sunwise or clockwise. Sunwise or clockwise attracts, and counterclockwise or widdershins or against the sun detracts, right? So I go from the left of the opening of the house, the main opening, and then I go to every opening, the first opening to the left, and I sprinkle salt along the whatever it is, if it's a door, if it's a window seal. When I do the sprinkling of the salt, what I do is create my own verbiage, right? So I had a period of time where one of my children had attended a Christian preschool, and was becoming Christian. And my husband had decided to become Christian after we got married. We've been married like 6-7 years. He decided he was no longer ours the true, and he was going to become Christian. So, or return to Christianity, because he had been raised Christian. So I will or would do Mother, Maiden, and Crone, Father, God, and Newborn Son, please protect this home. I would call upon the deities. Today, a lot of the times I'll go with ancestors instead. Um, but mainly what you're looking at is whatever you talk to, whatever you pray to, whatever you speak to, you're asking them to remove any negativity from this home. I do everything usually in sets of threes because I try to I do most of my stuff actually I think not most of it. I do probably about 40 to 50% of my stuff Celtic. Most of the things that I incorporate as ritual comes from understanding of Celtic history, because that's the first thing outside of Indigenous that are outside of Turtle Island Indigenous that I had done a lot of study of. And because when I started studying things outside of Turtle Island Indigenous is because I was, being told at the time that I wasn't Indigenous, and so I felt like I had to. I knew I was Indigenous one way or another. Like I knew that my heart was. And so I went looking towards other Indigenous cultures. And the Celtic culture was one that I absolutely knew I had because it was my grandfather's culture. And I knew my grandfather and loved my grandfather. So in fact, my grandpa was amazeballs. Him and my grandma were amazing. But and we knew the family line and the name. I mean, it was in the O'Casey name. But so most of my stuff early on became Celtic outside of what I had learned early on, which I do really incorporate. Like, I mean, I incorporate things though that I'm pretty sure that most cultures used to use too. Like I incorporate talking to the plants. I incorporate honorable harvest, but I am damn sure and I incorporate it as indigenous, and thinking as indigenous and under indigenous, verbiage and everything else, and would not try and state that I get it from Celtic thought process because um, I wouldn't want it to come across as anything other than an indigenous thought process, right? That other than an Turtle Island indigenous thought process. But I am sure that older indigenous cultures felt that same, connection and that same need to ask and that same need to treat with respect, right? And that same understanding, right? That's awesome. My grandma Louise is actually my favorite. I loved his wife. She had raised my mother. She was my mother's grandmother. And her oldest, Pat, was, I don't know. She got pregnant young and she ended up married to Grandpa Earl. And Grandpa Earl was very, very abusive. And so I'm sure that a lot of it was her trauma. But she ended up, her behavior ended up really creating a lot of problems and is really, I think, the root of the vast majority of the problems, my mother still deals with and I still deal with. But I really loved Grandma Casey, Grandma and Grandpa Casey. We called them Grandma and Grandpa Casey when I was growing up. We called them by their last names. I think of her as Grandma Louise a little bit more, I think, now. And she's it's her ancestry that is where the Turtle Island Indigenous and the Black both come in from. And so I have she taught me a lot. And it's also where I got my love from Neanderthals. She's the one that when I talk about, going to visit my grandmother when I was like 12 and she had a coffee table book of Neanderthals. And it was my first experience with Neanderthals, really. And she gave me a full life and complete works and will of William Shakespeare when I was like 12. Like it was my book forever. I was really big. I've always been really big into books and literature and everything. And I loved the sonnets actually, because I did a lot of poetry and I really loved poetry. And so it was really amazing for me. But for me, I use counterclockwise and I use threes. And as I'm salting whatever opening that I'm at, be it a door or a window, Again, counterclockwise from the front or the main entrance. I in sets of 3, whatever deities or whatever ancestry or whatever that I'm calling on, ask for protection. When I reach the front door, the last main entrance, the one that I have not touched yet, but that I started just to the left of, I ask for all negative energy to depart and welcome all positive energy to remain. I don't want to remove spirits who are positive from my space. I would rather have the spirits or the energy that is positive within my space. And so I always ask that the negative remove and that the positive remain. That's hard. Yeah. Yeah, that's hard. My grandpa Earl had 9 children with my grandma Pat and our grandma Englehart. I loved her last husband. I think everybody did. Grandpa Englehart was amazing. She had 9 children with him and 2 had died, and my mother was 2 weeks old when she left. And so she left with she had 7 children with him and 2 had died. So she left with 5 children. She ended up having 2 more, and so it's 9 children in total, and 2 died. But she had to be in her early 20s. She got pregnant and married him at 16. She had like a 1-year-old sister in the home. My grandparents had a baby late. Like they had her and then they had another one late. And then she moved out and in with him, and then they moved out of state, and he was just horrid. He ended up dying in land wars in Brazil in 82 or 87. And he was selling off land and went out and got shot. We were living in Eastern Washington at the time, and I remember my mother taking a call on a payphone and just sobbing her eyes out. Well, she didn't sob her eyes out. I don't think she really cared. I just remember hearing her on the payphone. She never really knew him. She said that the only time she saw him, she was like 7 years old, and she remembers that he tickled her until she peed, even though she kept asking him to stop. Like he was kind of like not a very nice human being. So I don't think she cried. I think I remember her standing at the payphone. I think I kind of remember my dad and then my sister in the car a little bit more than anything else. And I think that I don't remember her getting back in. I just remember asking her what happened. So I think she had some form of response because I don't think I would have asked her what happened otherwise. But anyways, yeah. He was not somebody I ever knew. I actually know more about his family line than I know about him. I think even in looking into the family line, I didn't even really look that far into him. Like I just didn't care that much. From everything I knew, that he was not really the best person to have in our lives anyways. So that's really the best, I think, of a good, really simple part of everyday cleansing of the body and shielding of the body. The household cleansing really isn't something that I do on a regular basis. It's something that I do when I move in, or if something feels really attacked, right? Like if I feel like there's been problems or something, I might do it. But it's not really something that I do a whole lot, just because, it's a lot of ritual. And again, I just don't do a lot of ritual in my life. It's a little too much for me to incorporate in the day to day, right? I don't really actively, I'm really trying to do more actually, where I incorporate, small little things. But I'm more inclined to do things and incorporate them if if they come along with other things I'm doing, or if they don't involve extra steps. I don't do extra steps very well. Extra steps for me is very difficult. because it's hard enough to do the steps I'm taking. And so if I try and incorporate extra steps into my day, it becomes very difficult for me to do. No. We've had this talk today. It's not the day for you to be jumping up here. And now I've got glue on my hand and I need to use it. No. Come on, Twitchy. He's not usually on my desk. He likes this chair and he's not very happy at me that I have his chair. That's my Twitchy. He's my baby. I have 3 cats and then I have the grand cat that's hanging around as well. I think his mama just signed a lease, and so she'll be taking him soon. Anything on self-protection on an energy level that anybody has questions on? Hi, kitty. Oh, the kitty. Sorry, I was like, somebody named Kitty came in. I'm not seeing that. So the other thing that I want to talk about today, and this is not something that I talk about often. I talk and touch, I think, sometimes about having dealt with it, but I don't talk about other parts of it because TikTok is not really a place that I can talk very freely on. We've seen what talking freely on TikTok does. That's why we're not on TikTok today. I am going to smoke. I think that it's pretty much okay on YouTube. But if it's offensive to anybody, please turn away for a second. I'm going to kind of do it over here that you can see this on here, which you can't see on TikTok. But I need to medicate a little bit, just so you know. Not all people who use narcissistic tools or red flags are narcissists. And I think that a lot of times we should know that, like we need to know that. A lot of times I think that people who are using narcissistic tools, thank you, Amazon for $25. Delftware Sherlock. I'll see if I've got the link and I'll post the link somewhere. I bought it from there twice, so I should have it somewhere in my history. But I'll get the link. I love my pipe. I bought it. It is ceramic, and I bought it, and I was just getting ready to leave for something, and it fell and broke like right before I left for some event, and I was going to be out of town. And so I had to go and buy another one. Didn't get it until I came back, but I wasn't able to get in time until I came back because I was like leaving that. I was gathering my shit up to leave, and it broke on me. I was like, what the fuck? But I do believe with narcissism that a lot of people are currently dealing with having narcissistic tools because those are the only tools that they were taught. 1 second, I need to grab a piece of paper. There we go. Sorry about this. I think that people have narcissistic tools because that's what they're taught without being narcissistic, right? I know I can do this. And I'm talking to you like you're over here still. I'm going to have to do it that way because that's where I'm seeing it. And I have to be able to see it too. Sorry, I have to readjust things sometimes because it just doesn't work in the way that I want it to sometimes. And I have to figure out how to readjust it while we're doing this. Okay, so I think that quite frequently people that behave with narcissistic tools are behaving with narcissistic tools because they've been taught narcissistic tools. And it's the only tools that they know and that they understand. It's not that they themselves are narcissists, it's just that that's what they know and understand, right? And so I firmly and fully believe that when we are dealing with most people, not most people, currently the dark triad makes up 15% of our society. The dark triad is narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. This makes up 15% of our society. So unfortunately, 15 of every 100 people you know roughly, is a narcissist or a Machiavellianist or a psychopath. This is the unfortunate facts. Personally, I believe, and I've talked about this before, that we bred for this, that this is our God kings, right? That our early royalty is all these narcissists and these megalomaniacs. And in breeding for the narcissism and the megalomaniac that we breed megalomania, or Machiavellianism, really, that we breed for, that in that breeding for it, we've actually created this space in which we are really creating more of these people within our society. And this comes from not just a gene, and we know that there is a gene, but it comes from an activation of that gene. And when we're activating that gene with the trauma that we see in society so frequently, we are absolutely getting a high level of narcissists and Machiavellian, or whatever they fucking call that one. But people who have no capacity for empathy, and people who have no capacity for compassion. The problem is that when these people come into our lives, they mimic us. The person that I was talking to today is dealing with stuff that this person is absolutely abusing them, and they can absolutely see, like, they're like this, but that's not who they are, right? And I've been there. We frequently think, well, that's not who they are. If they understood, this is mine. Frequently, if he understood the actual harm that it's causing me, he wouldn't do it because he loves me, which is completely false. He understood exactly what harm it was causing me, and he continued to do it, not because he didn't love me, but because he's incapable of loving something that's not a reflection of himself. But that does not mean that narcissists and people who use manipulative mental abuse are not capable of making you think that you love them. Now, why do I say it that way? I am not saying that you are not a loving human being who is giving love. You do not love them. You see your reflection in them because their mimicry gives them the ability to not show you who they are when you meet them. And in the first however many months of their initial honeymoon phase before they start their abuse phase, which is averaged at 18 to 24 months, okay, by abusers in groups and studies who have stated that's how long they wait before they enter into their abuse stage. So the person that you fall in love with is the mimic of you. They mimic you because they want you to think that they are everything you need. If their mimicry is not of your behavior, it is a mimic of what they hear from you about what is ideal in a person to you. So, the light that is shining out of them, the brightness and the beauty that you see, however your energy interacts, is energy that they have stolen from you and reflected back to you. You are not in love with your narcissist abuser. You are in love with the reflection of yourself that they have used to damage you. Period. And I say this and I double down on this because we stay because we want the world to see that beautiful thing that we know our abuser is, because we see it in them when the rest of the world doesn't. And the reason that we see that beauty in them that the rest of the world doesn't see is because of the fact that the rest of the world doesn't see that beauty in them. They see that beauty in us, because they are reflecting us back, right? So the rest of the world can't possibly see that beauty. If the rest of the world is ever going to see any beauty, it's going to only be a reflection of the rest of the world's beauty, because the narcissist must do the same with the rest of the world as well. This is why they are so capable of manipulating the new girlfriend, the new boyfriend, the children, and everything else to believe that you're the problem, because of the fact that with every relationship they build, they are building it based on lies about themselves, because every relationship is built on how they reflect themselves to somebody, how they reflect. Every relationship with a narcissist is the narcissist reflecting the victim, because we're all victims of a narcissist in this behavioral pattern, right? This interaction with a narcissist is being a victim of a narcissist, right? So in the interaction, the narcissist is always reflecting the victim back at them, right? So what the victim sees as the positive that they are is, again, not the positive that you see in them, because you see your own positive in them, your own reflection, your own mimic or mirror, right? Your own specifically manipulated and designed mask. Okay. So they fall in love with that. They can only see that. They can't see yours. So it's so much harder to create that understanding that there is something lying about the narcissist. And that's the other thing that they do, is nothing they tell the other person about you, just like nothing they tell you about the other person, is truthful. And the reason for this is because they aren't seeing you. Well, they're capable of reflecting you. They're not capable of seeing you fully and completely and loving what they see. They're not capable of love, because they are not capable of caring what happens to somebody else. It is only what happens to them. It is about their self-need, right? So being incapable of reflecting self-need, or incapable of doing other than reflecting self-need, incapable of love, what they're reflecting back at you, they cannot reflect to anybody else, but they also cannot see you. And what they're looking at is their idealization of you. A narcissist will put you up on a pedestal. They decide that you are what they want you to be, because a narcissist cannot interact with other people on a level of The only way a narcissist can believe that they love somebody is something that reflects them or reflects their ideal image. This is why they abuse. Because when you are not reflecting their ideal image or reflecting them properly, uh, they can't see you as anything other than an extension of themselves, and so you are ruining their face. Your actions are showing that they are acting this way because you are not your own human being. You are their human being, right? So this is why they can't see you as what you truly are. All they can see you as is what they have perceived of you because they can't love anything other than themselves. They can't admire anything other, it's this reflection back into that inability. And I have a better way to describe it. It's just not hitting me right now. So if that's not as understandable as I want it to be, I apologize. When we look at this, though, what we're seeing is that we really have this thing where we end up with this thought processes in our head that we are actually um, in love with this person who is harming us extensively, like harming us to the point that they're literally stripping away every part of who we are. Because a narcissist can't love you for who you are. They can only love you for what they see of you. They're incapable of they're incapable of being able to accept it, right? I don't know. There's something in here that's losing it for me right now. Anyways, the big thing is that when we're thinking that we're in love with somebody, it's not that we're in love with them. Not all the time, obviously, but when we're looking at a narcissist. So if somebody is treating you with this, or there's just clear patterns of long-term abuse, like, people who don't have care for their children, people who don't have care for prior partners, people who don't have care for anything, or, they have no problem in utilizing tools of other people against you, right? By turning other people who should never be tools most of the time into tools, right? When you see that, what you love, what you respect, what you believe is there, that's not the truth. What the truth is when their eyes go dark, when they drop their mask. Think of it the same, think of the mask as almost the same as, and do not take this to mean that they're equivalent on any level or that I'm comparing the two or the two are in the same category. But we know how neurodivergent constantly masks, right? They use that same thing, a narcissist. It's not the same thing, but they use that, like they have a mask that goes up constantly with just as much lack of conscious thought, right? That because for a neurodivergent, like when my mask goes up, my mask going up is trying to make sure that I am interacting in a way that will be heard, seen, and understood, right? My mask is acknowledging that other people don't think, there's so many levels to it that I can't even begin to understand, even because I'm only beginning to understand my neurodivergence, right? But that mask that goes up, it with me as a neurodivergent, it's not a manipulation. It's not trying to get society to do something, or not trying. It's just trying to not stand out, right? It's just trying to, like, I always stand out anyways, but it's just trying to, be okay within, right? Whereas with a narcissist, yes, the mask is also an automatic, right? It's also that almost subconscious action, because it is that a narcissist subconsciously, though they probably won't even admit as a narcissist, knows that they're not like everybody else. Okay. Um, and they know that other people have emotions, and that the other people have empathy. And so they have to learn early on how to mask their lack of empathy. Again, that's the only thing that I'm talking about, and it has nothing to do with empathy, but that learning how to mask, and so it becomes subconscious early on. And the same kind of masking, just not for anywhere near the same reasons. And I want to double down on that just because I have those two in the same thing. But I just want you to understand that it's that same almost subconscious, because you know you have to do this because you were taught this like from infancy, that you have to do this to be able to. For a neurodivergent, it is to be able to be a part of. For a narcissist, it is to be able to hide who you are. That's a huge difference. So, but that subconscious mask, and so they don't, when you see that mask drops, that mask is the mirror. What they're doing with that mask as a narcissist is mirroring, right? They're mimicking sometimes, like they'll mimic. They describe it as mimicking or describe it as mirroring, like not narcissists, but psychology describes it as mirroring or mimicking. And what it is they're either mirroring or mimicking you or your ideal, what they think that you want, right? Like, so say you're with a narcissist and they're perfect, but they're everything opposite of you, but you're in love with that perfect. So you're like, well, that can't be a reflection of me because it's the opposite of me. You're right. They're mimicking your, they know that that's what you need. Like they know, as a hunter, you know what attracts your prey. And that's another thing. Remember that this is a hunter that views you as prey. As a hunter, you know how to attract your prey. And as a hunter, when you know how to attract your prey, you know all the tricks. So if your prey wants someone that's completely opposite of them, but not too opposite, right? Like nobody wants somebody who's unkind when you're kind, right? So they mimic and mirror those ideals or those thought processes and beliefs when they're not mimicking and mirroring you yourself. With this, this is what you love. And with this, when we are sitting here going, my mother told me in my last divorce, when she finally stopped, I don't know why she was telling me not to leave, but when she finally stopped that, she told me, she says, Sarah, he's too broken. You can't fix him. Some people are just too broken to fix. And she was right. And this is true. Not only are some people too broken to fix, but some people don't fucking want to be healed. Counseling. To understand better ways to deal with emotions or feelings, right? So the likeliest with this is that you, and even with that, you can and I wouldn't bring up any part of the signs or even say, but I would bring up the abuse, and this is, the tools that they have picked up from their parent, because that's what it is. It is the tools that they are picking up from their parents, right? Now, is there possibility? Yes, absolutely, but only if, but there's also way more possibility that it's just tools, and that understanding of better tools and understanding, you can teach compassion and empathy, right? These are things that you can absolutely show somebody, and by showing them, they can learn them. if somebody is taught that the lack of compassion and empathy is beneficial, then they're going to try and strip away their compassion and empathy, right? So if their father taught them that the lack of compassion and empathy is a benefit, then they may be, trying to work on getting rid of it, right? So you can teach them different ways to deal with it. And for that, I would totally recommend, because like right now I'm doing stuck points and learning how to deal with stuck points. And learning how to deal with trauma that I've gone through, right? Because trauma affects the brain. And not only does trauma affect the brain, but trauma changes the chemistry of the brain. And so you have to rewire the chemistry of the brain, right? And when you've been raised by a narcissist, I used a lot of, well, not a lot of, but I used some pretty narcissistic tools at times parenting, even though I would say that I'm not a narcissist. I say that because I've had counselors tell me, and most people who are worried whether or not they're a narcissist are not narcissists. Narcissists never really worry whether or not they're narcissists. And I was like, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure there's something like, and it might be that. And if that's it, somebody tell me so I can fix it, and that's like, I've asked a few of them and they all say the same thing. You can't be a narcissist if that's how you feel about it. But I've absolutely used tools because I was raised with the tools. Whether or not the person who raised me I do not know. But the tools that that person had for some reason were very much those tools. And so I had to learn not to use them, right? And we all have to learn not to use the negative tools that we've been given at points of our lives. And since we all have to learn not to use the negative tools that we've been given at some point in our lives, it's good to start early. I really I feel that I'm really blessed in the fact that my adult children are really big on unlearning, negative tools that they learned. Um, and really big on seeking that. And I think that the earliest you can encourage learning positive tools, the better. And accepting that, and I think this is a big one. Very few of us really have very positive tools, right? Yeah. See, now I dealt with that I dealt with periods where one of my children seemed almost like, I mean, I thought, like, I was like, wow, am I raising somebody who's a psychopath? Like, I was like, oh my God. I would say no. I mean, I know that person now, and I would tell you that there's no way, right? I would tell you that that person was dealing with a lot of trauma that I didn't even know about at the time. That person has narcissistic parents and parent and grandparents and has been taught a lot of narcissistic tools. But they're definitely not a narcissist, right? Um, so my belief is that at the time they didn't have I certainly wasn't giving tools that were better, right? I didn't have tools that were better at the point to give, right? And the situation that I was putting them in was filled with narcissists, their parents, their, because they have they have more parents than just the two. And, their grandparents and things like that, like you worry about your kids all the time anyways, right? And you worry that, you're doing damage all the time anyways. And, like my biggest fear at this point is that, being taught that women are evil is going to make my children think that all women are evil, like it made their father think that all women are evil, But when we're looking at that, we have to realize that there's tools that we have that we've taught them, and there's tools that we need to change, but there's also so much narcissistic tools, especially if they have narcissistic parents around them. And that's not that they are, it's that they are seeing those tools, and those tools are effective in their lives, right? those tools work in their lives because, and the put down is their father says that shit to them. And they don't know how to deal with what's going on. They are only understanding how to deal with it in that. And that's what that is. Definitely, I would definitely do counseling. And I would definitely go to a counselor and sit down about all the issues as you know them. Not saying I'm not sure if they're, but you say, I don't know where their mental health's at, and I don't want them to learn negative tools. And then, if they're coming back with they're fine, go to another counselor. Sometimes counselors are not, like sometimes you're getting counselors that aren't really giving you the best of okay, right? Or the best of counseling for your children. And you need to also make sure that you're finding a counselor. So you don't want to know what your child is talking about. That's not what you're there for. That's not what they're there for. And they need to be able to talk about whatever the fuck they want to with their counselors. And they need to be able to talk about whatever the fuck they want to and not think that it's going to get back to you in any way, shape, or form. What you can always ask your counselor, though, is, are there ways in which I am failing? And what ways can I do better? Right? What ways can I help them? What things do I need to do to help whatever tools you're giving them, right? You don't want to know what's going on in their heads. That's theirs. But you do want to know how you can do better for them, right? And you do want to know how you can make sure that their world is doing better, right? But also talk to your child about how they feel about their counselor as you're leaving your counseling appointment. I don't want to know about what you talked about, but do you like your counselor? Do you feel safe with your counselor? What did you like about how your counselor talked to you in this meeting? Because then you can assess whether or not they're getting along with their counselor. And if they're not getting along with their counselor, they're not going to be open, and their counselor is not going to be able to give them clues, right? Or give them tools. So make sure that you don't try and get involved in what is being talked about, but you absolutely, try and figure out what tools you can help with. And that they're having a good relationship with them, because counseling, you really have to connect with a counselor for it to work, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, but oh yeah, so no, yeah, he needs counseling bad at that point, or they need counseling bad at that point. I would say they yeah, definitely. And I would say that you do as well. Mainly because of the fact that there's still that control dynamic. Unfortunately, when they have any ability to influence your children, there's still that control dynamic. You're still dealing with, I was talking about this last week with my counselor. You're still dealing with domestic violence. Still in the middle of a domestic violence thing. As long as they have any effect or control, and they're utilizing their abusive behavior for that effect or control, you're dealing with a domestic violence case still. So I would recommend for both of you. Myself, I'm so glad you have your child, right? Having had to deal with the court system and with the results of, I would say that counseling is one of the, and I would, like my youngest, initially, like the counseling, like he was, like she told me, he said, I can tell you anything. He said that there are things that he wants to keep from other people, but that I can tell you everything. And now, he's not, but he gets to have that counseling and stuff because I fought for it, because he needed it. And we have to ensure that they have trustworthy adults that they can talk to about shit, especially when there are lots of different adults in play. right? Yeah, it's hard. It's not going to be easy. I'll tell you that. Like I had my appointment yesterday and I bawled all through it. And I am doing a PTSD specific one right now. And then I go to my regular counselor every month as well. And I was my PTSD specific one is really well right now we're dealing with stuck points, which is points today even. But I'm not usually trying. I dealt with all 3 appointments I've had in the last week and a half because I've done uh, 2 PTSD appointments and then my monthly regular one. All of them I've had to deal with something that affected me and took me a day and a half to get over, and yet I'm still all 3 appointments have this effect in it. But it's also something that no matter what, I can't get away from. It's just affecting me. Like I you know and it's being in an abusive situation that I'm still in that abusive situation because they have control over my children, right? And I don't get to see my children, and they have control over what my children think. They have control over what my children are being indoctrinated into believing about me, and they are really good at indoctrination, right? They're really good at gaslighting, and so it gets difficult sometimes, but I just have to come to the realization, and I'm still working on. I know it, but I'm still working on it. That uh, I can't do anything about it until they're older, until they're ready. They may never be ready, but I also know that all the other things that I do and all the work that I put in show that I am not the person, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. It's good for you though, especially if you're dealing with that, like having long-term illness is hard. Chronic illnesses. I'm done. It could go away already. I'm done with this shit, right? Chronic illness is very difficult to deal with, especially those that progressively debilitate. Right? It's very difficult. So I'm going as draft wear basically for my partner's birthday this weekend. We're going to this fancy birthday thing, going out to a really nice dinner. And then we're going to a cigar bar. And everybody's dressing up. And so I have these shoes that I got before we went to Vegas that look like Delftware China porcelain. And they're like little Mary Janes. And as I've had to adjust my ability to walk, like I haven't been wearing heels as much. And so I got, I was like, I don't want to wear heels, but I haven't been wearing dresses or skirt as much, but I'm like, I'll go ahead and wear like a dress or a skirt for your birthday since this is a fancy dinner thing. And I wanted something. So I went with a whole like outfit based on it. So I have like this blue satin mermaid pencil skirt. Like it's got the ruffle at the bottom, kind of high low, but it's also like a really tight pencil skirt. That's a dark blue. And then I've got this white lace shirt. I had gotten a different shirt. I think I showed everybody that I had to return because it just was too short in the body for me. And it didn't give me a good waist. Like it tried to take my waist up way high. But I got a different one that's got like blue work along the collar and lace along the collar. So it shows off my tattoos. And it also looks like Delftware. And then I got earrings and everything. So it'll all Delftware up. And then I'm doing my nails like little pieces of porcelain. I like playing dress up. I like playing dress up anymore. Like, I think, like, for me, the playing dress up becomes like almost like a reparenting. Like, I'm like, I get to be a kid. I get to play dress up. So it's a lot of fun for me. So, really, those are the only things that I wanted to talk about today. Don't really have a lot of conversation to have today. I've got a couple of other things that I want to work on and get in and do some conversation on. I was looking at, and we were talking yesterday, we were trying to do some Turtle Island Indigenous things yesterday, of course, when it got, see me coming in off my off days, right? So I want to do a couple more lives, focus on that probably, but I'll probably do next week's like that. Today, I really just wanted to focus on what had really like been very recent for a family member for me, right? Like had felt very recent for me. And so, and just talk about, I mean, because it's just some simple stuff, but I feel like even though it's simple stuff, we're not really getting a lot of it, right? Like a lot of people, I'm not saying that it's not like there's not understanding of it happening, but a lot of people are not, well, yeah, understanding, I guess, is the best way to put it, because I think that there's a lot of people who are not really understanding that there is this absolute sense of, there's this, you know, large portion of society that they don't want to be fixed. They don't think that there's anything wrong with them. They think that they're the alpha of our species, that they're the and they'll even use that word. They think that they are the pinnacle of who we are. And in thinking that they're the pinnacle of who we are, they don't think that it's wrong to cause harm to you. They view you as prey. And when you have a group that is viewing you as prey, preying on you, we're absolutely getting this point of so many of us dealing with this extreme abuse that we don't have a way to get away from, right? And I find that too many people I love are dealing with it too, right? Like I've had to deal with it, but it's so predominant about our society and everything that we're not even like, we can be dealing with it and not realize that we're dealing with it. And this happens frequently. We can have family members who are being abused and not see that family members are being abused. We can be being abused and not see that we are being abused, right? We can see that this is happening quite frequently among all of us. And in seeing that this is happening quite frequently among all of us, we need to make safety changes, right? We need to start understanding that it's not safe to, we need to start researching, and we need to start looking into what red flags we need to start looking out for. And we need to, take better care of understanding that we don't need a partner, right? Like there's no need for you to have a partner in life, not a sexual one, not an intimate one, not long term. You can absolutely create family and friend groups that are way more productive and healthy for you, and still go out and get laid plenty and still raise children in a better environment. There are so many reasons for you not to get involved with somebody who is a narcissist. Now, that doesn't mean that narcissists are only found in romantic relationships, because unfortunately, narcissists are also found in parent-child relationships. Narcissists are also found in friendships, right? Like all these people are absolutely having children, and are absolutely going out and trying to make friend groups and stuff like that. And they're absolutely using all of these tools in this space. Um, so when we're looking at red flags, we need to look at them everywhere. Boundaries are good. And a soft expression of, not a soft, an expression of a boundary is good. And anybody's reaction to your expression of boundary that is in anything other than positive is an early warning sign. An early warning sign is, you're having a conversation with somebody and they don't seem to like you very much, or they don't seem to like what you're saying very much, right? They're not probably the person you want to be in a friendship with, right? You don't need to adjust what maybe if you feel like they're misunderstanding you, sure. But you certainly don't need to adjust who you are to give them anything better or anything more, right? We accommodate a lot, I think. Very many of us have this need to accommodate and to, especially if you are like neurodivergent or something like that, right? Where you view it as your own self thought process being at fault. And so you want to ensure that, you're acting how you're supposed to for the rest of society, right? Or, you want to ensure that you're doing the right thing, right? So very frequently we see that. And all of these things really just allow these groups of people to damage you. But my biggest takeaways for today really need to be, or I really want them to be, A, cleansing yourself, removing the negative energy, right? Finding ways to get rid of that and protect yourself, because protection is paramount at this point. And then B, absolutely 100%. I really, really, really want to see this understanding that you're not in love with your narcissist abuser. You are in love with the beauty in yourself that they are reflecting back at you. Your energy that they are stealing from you and reflecting back at you. It looks so beautiful and so right and so much like it belongs with you and so much like it's a part of you, because it is. They've stolen it to you and they're reflecting it back to you. Stolen it from you and reflecting it back to you. Do not let them continue. Run. 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 I'm going to go. It's been a couple of hours and it gets a lot for me, and I want to finish up on my nails and I get distracted. But I'll be here next Wednesday. I don't think that is the 21st, right? I don't think that the 21st, I have to look at the calendar. I will be back on TikTok after the 21st, for however long, until there's the ban again. But I will be here Wednesday. If I go live over here any other time this week, I will go ahead and post it up so that it can be seen and people know that it's happening. And then I will see everybody on Wednesday. And I'll go ahead and, is it? Fuck me, it is. No, it's not. Not for me, it's not. No, because my partner, it is Wednesday for me. It is Wednesday for me. Is it, where are you? Ottawa, right? It is not Tuesday for you. It is Wednesday for you. At least that's what my calendar says. I'm like, I planned this out for it to be Wednesday. Put all the effort into it to be Wednesday. What do you mean it's not Wednesday? I thought so. Like, I was like, I remember that conversation I saw on TikTok. Plus, I know, like I just got this thing coming in, this beautiful, beautiful works. And so I'm like, wait a minute, nope, nope, nope. And I was like, I was really big on, I had to make sure that Wednesday is when I did my nails because I want to make sure that they're still pretty pristine for this weekend and look really nice for this weekend. Because they're white base. And I want to make sure that their white is still really nice and white. I'm trying this pour over instead of my normal, and so I'm wondering how well it's going to work. It's okay. It's okay. You only confused me for 2 seconds. Only having for 2 seconds. Okay, everybody. And I'm not sure who everybody is at this point. Much love, and I will be back around. And I have some stuff I'm posting to TikTok today too. This evening, I want to post up some cleansing stuff and stuff like that. Have a great one, and I'll see you guys in a week. Bye.